One.
Good afternoon. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on December 8th, 2021, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. I am Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Please let me know if anyone else is recording this meeting. Today's hearing is being conducted via remote video conference, originally pursuant to the governor's emergency COVID order, and now under an order allowing remote public meetings through April 1st, 2022. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after presentations by applicants and/or the representatives, I will normally ask for comments and questions from commissioners and from any interested parties. Please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you are attending via phone, mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. If you're attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you are speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call. So that we have a record of a quorum, I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Associate Member Trina Francisconi.
Present.
Associate Member William Doherty. William does not seem to be with us today, and I am here, so we do have a quorum. A few words before we continue. This being the second Wednesday of the month, we must finish today's hearing by 4:30 in order to not conflict with another broadcast on Channel 18. This gives us 3.5 hours to conduct our business. So that we can hear every application on the agenda, we'll need to limit the time spent on each, which means that those resulting in protracted discussion may need to be continued. So everyone is encouraged today to please keep your presentations, questions, and comments succinct. Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through today's agenda, including whether any items are being continued.
Yes, so I just wanted to announce, since we have so many representatives on today, that the meeting schedule for 2022 is online. If you look at the right-hand side of our website and scroll down a little bit, it's there. All meetings and work sessions have been scheduled to 1 p.m. So there are no 3 p.m. meetings any longer. So I just want to put that out there. Our first application is a request for determination of applicability for 60 Seamus Lane for Thomas and Robin Flaherty, map 1A, parcel 84, and this is Vegetation Management, and this is a Crawford Land Management application.
For the record, Jen Crawford here for Crawford Land Management for this RDA. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So as you said, I'll keep it very succinct. It's pretty simple. This project, we're proposing to do some supplemental planting to an already naturalized area on the water side of the house, as well as rejuvenate an area within the 100-foot buffer zone. There are native trees growing in that area with a lot of native sassafras coming up in the understory, along with shrub honeysuckle. So we're proposing to remove the shrub honeysuckle, to remove a few dead trees that are in the area, to flush cut and stump sprout manage a couple other trees that are in very poor condition, as well as leave some of them alone. There's a replanting plan for that area in the understory that was also submitted along with the RDA filing, and I will leave it at that and answer whatever questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Jen. I'll just open this up for comments, questions from commissioners. Mary has her hand up.
I just had a quick question. I did notice at the site there's quite a few dead trees. Do you have any sense of why that whole area of trees are dying? Is there?
Yeah, I actually asked Nick that question as well. And his feeling was there may be something else going on there, but his feeling was that just the exposure. They've just gotten whacked a few good times, and the exposure is just it's really tough on them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's see. Jen, you did have your hand up, and now I don't see it.
I did. It was the same question that Mary
Same
had.
question. Okay. All right.
But also, Jen, you just said, I just wanted to clarify, this area is on the rear side of the house, not on the water side. It's right.
It's on the it's on like so as you drive up the driveway, it's off
Right.
to the right.
Yeah. Okay, it's not in front of the house, between the house and the water and the bank. That's all. Just wanted to.
No, that's
Okay.
correct. There's the bank that resource
No.
delineation does wrap around that side, and the actual bank on that side of the property is off property, but the 100-foot buffer zone extends over onto that side.
Yep. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Bob?
Hi, Jen. Just had a few things. So it looks like just one tree will be coming out. Oh, 2 trees, 3 trees, 4 trees, 5, 6 trees. I'm counting now. Yeah,
so
6 trees.
Yep. So we delineated between what was dead, like what trees were absolutely already dead, and they're shown in one symbol, and then the other symbol for it says tree to be removed. It actually, if you go through the restoration notes, they'll be stump sprout managed. They're just in such poor condition that we thought it was just best to kind of start over, so to speak. And also with being able to cut back some of those sassafras, there's already so much coming up in the understory from that clonal root system that it should actually spur some of those clonal saplings in the understory to really pop as well. So I think that area will result in being, a lot more densely vegetated at the end.
Okay, and just a correction on the plan here. It's a shell drive, not a gravel drive, leading up to the house.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and also where you have the bayberry, 3 bayberry being planted at the bottom staircase.
Yep.
That area does need something because it kind of slopes off and it's pretty vacant of any vegetation by that staircase there, the lower one. So I think that's a good idea to have some bayberry
Good.
there.
Yep.
I don't see anything else. Why did the homeowner want something done here?
They contacted us just because partially when you approach their property coming up that driveway, it's one of the very first things that they see, and it looks in such a state, so to speak. They were wondering if they could do anything to not only make it look better, but clearly they saw that there was a lot of dead in there and a lot of stuff in decline, and just kind of wanted to to make it look better, but to also make it healthier.
Okay. All right. Good enough. That's all I had. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob. I just have a couple. I do follow up on Bob's point about there's a lot of unplanted mulch area. I guess that's the same thing that Bob's talking about next to the house. I just was wondering why there was no ground cover there at all, particularly a native ground cover. It seems like it'd be an opportunity. I mean, I have anything to do with this particular project, but that was it did catch my eye. The other thing that I'm wondering about is it doesn't look like you're planting any trees. You're removing 4 dead trees and 5 live trees. We're not removing them. I guess you're removing them, or are you doing coppicing on some of these?
Yep, same thing as stump sprout managed. So the ones
okay.
Yep, the ones that we want to flush cut would be stump sprout managed back. And then one of the reasons why we're only proposing to plant understory species like the viburnum and bayberry is because there are so many clonal sassafras saplings coming up from that entire root system in there that I don't honestly think that it's really necessary to plant any sort of canopy species, and any canopy species that get large, I think years down the road will probably end up in the same condition as some of them that are there now. But there are existing serviceberry, which are all shown on the plan to remain just as they are. The only thing we would do is to prune any, large dead or splitting things off of them. But otherwise, all of that is remaining just as it is.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? It would, I don't gather from any of the comments that anyone has an issue with this. And so looks like it's going to be an improvement. And I think that without further comment, we are ready for a motion. I don't know, will we need to do this? I guess we don't need an RDA with any sort of conditions, or do we? I can't think of any. I would say not. Okay, Bob.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve a negative determination for 60 Seamus Lane.
Latin second.
Thank you, Karen. Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, and that is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In record time, too.
Bye.
Next up, we have the request to amend an order of conditions for 571 Old Harbor Road, John and Amy Rhinelander, map 16H, parcel 44-C2, SC 10-3499. Proposed construction of a deck, pergola, and stairs. This is phase 1, so they're just asking to be able to file an amended order. So again, we shouldn't spend much time on this. And I will share the plan, and this is a George Riley filing.
Mr. Riley, are you with us? Perhaps not. Anyone here associated with the project? Well, that's unexpected.
I thought I saw him earlier. So they are, like I said, they're proposing to remove the proposed construction of a deck, pergola, and stairs. They're going to add more mitigation and request a variance. They're no closer than the already existing approved patio that's up in this section. And so this is the area that they're wanting to work in.
Right. Yeah, it would, I mean, without input from the applicant, it struck me as being in keeping with the appropriate as to treat it as an amendment to the original OI, and I didn't see any issues myself, unless someone else has something that occurred to them. I think we could probably still go ahead and approve this for a phase 1, which all that means is we think it's within the context of the original NOI. Yes, Bob.
They are increasing the coverage in the 50, correct?
I believe.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I was going to talk to them about, the things that they obviously will need to provide us, but there's no point doing that. But even so, it doesn't mean just because, for those who, it doesn't mean by approving this request that we're approving the request for amendment. We're just approving them presenting it to us, which we can either approve or not approve, as depending on how it appears to us then. So, Janet.
I'll just note that, yeah, I saw that increase and had the same reaction to it, but that's something we'll get into at the phase 2 about whether they'll be, and Nikki just indicated that they're going to file a variance, I presume, for that increase. So we'll deal with that down the road. It just strikes me looking at it that it's well within the scope of the existing order of conditions, and let's have them move to the next level.
Right. All right, so I think we can just go ahead and vote them on through to the next phase.
So that
Okay.
would be a continuance. Well,
They have to file, so it's up to them.
yeah, I don't think we don't need to vote really.
Well,
Well, I guess vote to
yeah, I think we have
approve
to,
that they
we have to-
can.
we have to
file
approve phase
an
one.
amendment.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve phase one for an amendment to the order of conditions for 571 Old Harbor Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
I vote aye, and that is approved for phase one.
All right, next up is the notices of intent, 22 Glover Square, Frederick A. Swingle III and Deidre A. Swingle, map 15F, parcel 5-H1B SE. Yeah, most of these do not have SE numbers yet. Addition to dwelling and construction of a patio and rent station.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Thad.
Thad Eldridge, East Southeast, here representing the Swingles. I believe that they're on the line if there are questions, along with the builder, Kevin Boyer. We have a site. We had come in here a few months ago for an administrative review for the 5 trees that are hanging over the building. And we've included those in the plan just to keep on the up and up. We have 6 other trees proposed to be removed for the proposed improvements, which would be the addition to the home, the patio, and the rent station. We have 11 trees proposed as mitigation to meet the 550 square feet or 525 square feet required. I'm sorry, 1034 square feet required. I'll keep it on the up and up. And you'll read a letter from the abutter. We would like to get into the record that something is going to be done with the drain pipe that exists on the property. So the wetland to the north is a ditch that drains a fairly large area and possibly some runoff from Route 28 itself. And to the south is a Mass DOT drainage basin. And there is currently a metal pipe that exists from one end of the property to the other. The neighbor approached me last week with concerns that this pipe would not be able to be replaced with the mitigation proposed, but we specifically cited the trees around it so that you could still get to it. I spoke with the applicants today, and we're thinking of moving forward with making a repair. The metal pipe is showing some signs of age, and it would be good to either replace it with a ditch or with a pipe to make sure that this drainage system continues. Otherwise, if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Thad. Just open it up. Nobody has any questions. Well, I have, no, Janet, Janet, okay, Janet, then Bob.
Dad, what's the proposed patio material?
Typically, we see the condition that it's going to be a dry laid patio. So we would expect that.
So it'll be pervious or semi-pervious at least.
Semi-pervious. It's be set into a sandy mix, and the seams will water through.
Okay, and so the trees proposed for mitigation include flowering dogwood?
Yes.
Is that a native species?
It is a native species, and they were taking the advantage that they can now better buffer themselves from the abutter and from Route 28 on the other side of the abutter.
Yep.
We wanted to keep something lower back there to make sure that there was better coverage. The tupelos would do a good job with it for a little bit, but then they would grow tall and their buffer would diminish.
Yeah, so the spacing on the tupelos is 2 to 3 feet, is that, or no, that's the spacing is 15 to 20.
Yes.
So the size that'll be planted is 2 to 3 feet?
2 to 3 inch caliper.
Okay, two. So what size is that? I don't really.
I mean, and that's the specification right from the Barnstable County.
Okay. So how fast growing? I'm just trying to get to how long will the replacement of what's being lost in the height in the canopy be actually achieved? How long? Tupelos are fast.
That's going to take a good 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
It's something that's really sizable.
Yeah. Is that Nikki? Is that the list? Who's got the list up here?
I have the list.
Okay. Are we looking up flowering dogwood? Because I've never seen that listed on any of the lists I've looked at. I love them, but you know, as a mitigation proposal.
I don't believe it's the best of the dogwoods for this area, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, I would say.
So here's the USDA.
Like to have they like the wet conditions in the soil, so that's perfectly appropriate for there. But I just don't know about what the soil condition is once you in the area where the dogwoods are proposed. Maybe Bob can help me here. He knows much more about this than I do, so I'm going to shut up about the dogwoods.
So we do know we have some heavy soils out here. There's a patch of silt loam, all in the orange.
Oh, I see. Yep. Well, the whole property is in that.
I mean, the purpose of the drainage ditch is we don't get good flow out here.
Right.
And that comes from the north and drains all the way down to this wetland.
Okay.
And that's right through an area that's very silty. There's another perched wetland that's across Glover Square. So it's yeah, lots of clay, lots of silt.
So where does the drainage pipe start and stop? I saw the reference on the site plan to how's it expressed on there? The end of the pipe was located and top of the drainage pipe located.
So we recovered the pipe at the ditch to the north.
I see.
That's the top of the pipe here. We didn't spend enough time in the woods near the swamp finding the end of the drainage pipe.
Right.
Everything's functioning right now.
Yeah.
So,
So
obviously.
Why do you want to replace it, or?
It's an old metal pipe and it's showing signs of deterioration.
Okay.
The neighbor is most concerned that what happens if it does deteriorate and then we get some rain, is he going to be flooded because this becomes a virtual dam?
Yeah.
The applicant sees this as the prime opportunity. If we have machinery there anyway, let's fix it. But because it's such a late hour that this is coming about, we'd like to open it up in the record so that we can come back for an amendment while we're under construction.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Bob?
Okay, Bob. Yeah, I looked at all the trees right up against the house that are slated to go. Those definitely should be going. The ones around that are right near the patio that's going to be put in, they are closer to the house too. There's no way of incorporating one or two of those into the patio area, huh?
They prefer not to. They were hoping to relocate trees away from the house a bit.
Yeah, and the other, the remaining trees will probably give them some shade anyway, huh?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There's
And did you have,
and those existing trees certainly didn't follow the guideline on spacing.
right. And did you ever consider putting evergreens in along the edge there instead of deciduous ones?
We did. They do use this seasonally, and this was just the choice that we made. If you think that a couple of evergreens back there would be more appropriate, we can certainly put a couple in.
I was just thinking of wildlife habitat too, for nesting and so forth. And considering there aren't really a lot of evergreens in that area, I think if you had a mixture of some in there, I think that would be more ideal, and for the screening purpose too.
Sure.
Other than that, I don't see anything else.
I mean, trading out maybe a couple of white pines.
White pines, anything like that, yeah. Or even, a grouping of white pines, usually groups of 3 or 5 or something like that. Probably three white pines or something like that. Depending on exactly where they want more screening,
It sounds good.
Yeah, other than that, I don't see anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I had the same thought, Bob, is that a little more diversity in the tree plantings would be good from an ecological perspective. So I'm glad you brought it up, and it would be good to see that. I do have a question about, there was reference to replacing lawn. I'm a little confused about the site plan where you see the trees being planted, the tupelos and the dogwoods. There's a little hatch line. Is that supposed to mean edge of something? Is that edge of lawn or?
That's the edge of the existing lawn, and we'd be pulling the lawn back into the edge of the mitigation. I can turn it to the plan.
So I guess so that shows existing lawn, and so the lawn would then go away under those trees.
No, we'd pull the lawn back, whatever
say-
the separation is from the trees.
I don't know what you mean by pull the lawn back. Which direction are you pulling it?
Take the lawn out from where the mitigation is going.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was.
Have the new edge of lawn right at the edge of the mitigation.
Between the trees and the house.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, but that's not indicated.
No, we can add that to the plan just so.
Yeah, I think that should be shown for purposes of certificate of compliance. And and then the question is whether we need mitigation for that. And it's always good. We always ask for it. We always like to see it.
I'm sorry,
So
mitigation for
I'm demarcation. I'm sorry.
Oh, demarcation. Very good.
And so if we did that, that would be basically demarcating as mitigation everything in front of those trees to the back of the property line.
Correct.
Yeah. And so what would be on the ground other than trees in the mitigation area?
Probably a fescue mix or a wildflower mix.
And I think that I didn't see any reference to that as well. And I think it would be good to add that language. Yeah, it needed to be something. And then the question is whether it's mowed and the details like that. And obviously, I mean, if it's true mitigation, normally what we're used to seeing is you have your canopy trees and underneath you have shrubs, and then underneath the shrubs you have, grasses or whatever. But this is just trees. And I was sort of wondering how, I mean, really what you're doing is you're replacing trees being removed for new trees, which is always good. You're doing it slightly higher ratio, which is good also. But it would be good to have the details on what's in the mitigation area besides those trees. Because it doesn't really seem like mitigation if all you're doing is planting trees.
We can certainly beef that up a little bit.
I also noticed and this is a sort of a side issue, but there's lots of ivy crawling up trees in the side yard and the front yard, and I think maybe even some in the back, lots of English ivy. It would be good for whoever's doing this work to get rid of that ivy, obviously, because it's going to eventually pull down any tree that's growing up on. Some of it was pretty thick.
We can certainly add that. Tough one to get rid of at times.
It is. Well, it's in a way, it's one of the easier things to do, though. You just go clip it, and you keep clipping it. You clip it every year, and eventually it gives up. And it certainly saves the trees. And eventually the dead vines will just fall off the trees. And some people like the look of the ivy, but it's really bad to have it there. All right. So what we have here then, I think, is a little more diversity in the tree plantings. We have a little more detail on what's in the mitigation area. Don't know if we have anything else. If anyone can remember. So,
Demarcation?
yeah, demarcation. Yeah, thank you. So these are things that, on the face of it, maybe you could. I'm not sure we need to actually hear it again, as long as what you give us, looks reasonable. So it sounds like nobody has a problem with the project as an overall. We're just quibbling about some of the details of it. So, so I don't know when you could have those in time for the end of the year or into the new year.
We could have those ready for you in time for the next work session.
Okay.
So that would be a continuance to January 5th.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Or to draft an order.
Yeah.
And if I may, did the abutters letter get to you?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, because I don't think I saw it. I don't know if those who have hard copy or paper copies saw it, but I didn't see it. And so is that something, Nikki, do you think we need to read into the record?
Sorry, I'm looking.
Well, I'll read it into the record, and then I'll get a copy of it.
Oh, Nikki has it
No,
now.
I do have it. I have it.
It's pretty short, so I think we should just go ahead and read it.
Would you like to have it?
I don't know. I was hoping, Nikki, can you do it?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because I'm just looking.
I can do it. Yep.
Yeah.
To whom it may concern, my name is Damian Webby, 36 Glover Square. My wife Charlene and I do not have a problem with our neighbor's project. We do, however, have a concern with the covered marsh drainage ditch in the backyard. Our concern is the drainage piping with stand construction and the digging of 4 new plantings. We don't know what material was used for the piping and its possible state of fragility. A lot of water flows through the system and a blockage would create flooding. Sincerely, Damian and Charlene Webby, 36 Glover Square.
Right. So Thad, just to summarize, what's going to be your approach to the pipe as you the project?
We want to take a look at it, run through a few numbers, and then return to the commission with probably an amended order of conditions to do something with it. Be replacing it with a more sturdy and longer lasting pipe, or opening it up to a ditch.
So you don't want to deal with that within the context of this application?
So the abutter came to me after he received his notification. I was able to speak with the applicants today. They would like to have the addition done for summer, so they'd rather push forward with that end of it. And then if we can permit this at the same time, they'll be able to do the work simultaneously, but it won't slow down their construction schedule.
Mhm. So what your neighbors have is a promise that the applicant will come back with a solution that's agreeable to the abutters for the pipe.
Yes, and the pipe is flowing now, so it's not a critical problem, but this is the perfect time to remedy it. If they upgrade that pipe now and it lasts for 100 years, then we don't have to worry about it again. If they leave it as it is and construction occurs and they don't damage the pipe, it's a question of how much time will it be before that pipe fails. Because that it's a metal pipe, so its life expectancy is probably 10 years, 20 years.
So your plan is to deal with the pipe whether you break it or not.
Correct.
Okay. So, all right, I guess then we don't need to hold, it doesn't sound like we need to hold this application hostage for the pipe work, that we will trust that you will do the right thing if it's to address the abutters' needs.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, Bob, I think we're ready if you would like to do the honors.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we send 22 Glover Square to the work session on January 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
I vote aye, and we'll see you in the work session.
See you then.
Thank you.
The next order of conditions is 84 Cranberry Lane, Jeffrey A. and Susan L. Cottrell, map C, parcel 25-G21, SE 10-3521. Addition to a single-family dwelling, removal of stairs, and part of deck.
Good afternoon again. Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. The Cottrells are looking to add an addition onto their home on Cranberry Lane. The existing property, we have a salt marsh system up against Sulphur Springs, a velocity zone coming onto the property, an A zone up to a slope that constitutes a coastal bank. And the entire property is within jurisdiction, and most of it's within the 0 to 50. So the Cottrells are looking to put a modest addition on their home that doesn't trigger full FEMA compliance. So this would be less than 50% the value of the current home. It would be an extension of their family room. Instead of the existing deck, it would be placed on Bigfoot sonotubes, and it would result in the removal of the set of stairs that are at this end. And they'll happily just use the one set of stairs and an access way to get into that family room. This constitutes a reduction in coverage, so no mitigation has been required. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thad, questions? Anyone? Janet, might as well.
Why not? Hi, Thad. Thanks,
Hello.
Bob. Can you walk me through and clarify the coverage table and thank you for actually putting the table that's in the checklist above the conservation area table on your site plan, because I can look at them, and I'm having problems with the NDZ figures. So I'm looking at buildings in the NDZ, existing 1174, proposed 1434. I guess, is that because you're switching out deck, which is not part of a building, and you're putting the structure where on sonotubes where the deck currently is? So that's being added into the building?
Yes. So
Okay.
just from one category to another.
Yep,
When you look at the lower areas, we actually separate out the resource, which
right.
the deck is in the resource and the building would be in the NDZ.
Okay, so that's why, so in the chart below, within the inner aura, the NDZ, buildings proposed is listed as 1217 as opposed to 1434.
Correct. And then above, you have an increase of 1217 within the resource area itself. So we've just summed those and put them in the NDZ
Oh,
category.
217. So 1217 and 217 is 1434. Because the bank runs right, the bank's going to run right through the building extension. So 217 feet of the building extension will be on the coastal bank or
If
the
it's
flood
coastal
zone or
bank,
however, yeah.
So we have slopes on the sides of the building. So that would be the coastal bank. And then the floodplain itself is right up to the face of the building. So
Right. So where does is the coastal bank shown by the dark black line?
it is.
Okay, so it's slightly above, as you might expect, the floodplain limit. So that coastal bank also currently runs directly underneath the existing deck, right along the side of the building, right?
Well, it runs right up to the building, and then this is a walkout basement. It's
Yeah.
flat right up to the building, so it's too flat to be a coastal bank there, but it is coastal bank right up to and leading from. But it's
Okay,
still floodplain in here, so it's still a resource area.
right, right. And so, but there's no, I mean, I've read it a couple times to understand that there's no proposal to do anything about the flood propensity on that, in that walkout basement.
Correct. That's a finished basement, and we went through different options on how could we lift everything to work with the floods. They're not ready to commit to that level of a project. They just want a little addition.
Okay,
So technically, under FEMA, under the building code, they are able to make an addition
Yep.
provided that it doesn't constitute more than 50% the value.
this is going to be under 50%. I get that. Yep. Okay, so let me just clarify one more. The 267 square foot decrease in hardscape in the NDZ, is that associated with the removal of the deck and the stairs?
It is.
Okay, got that. And you just told me the 217 square feet increase in the buildings in the resource area is the changeover from deck to structure.
Yes.
Okay, I think I got this now. How many sonotubes are contemplated to support this?
I believe it's 3.
Wow, that's all it's going to take? And how would you characterize the degree of, or the nature and the scope of the disruption that's associated with the installation of those sonotubes in the resource
Pretty
area?
small amount of work, you know, they'll have to dig a hole for each one, getting down the 4 feet, stockpile the material right there, put the forms in, throw the concrete in, let it set, and backfill.
And is that require having equipment back there?
It would be better to have equipment back there. A small excavator would be, I'm sure that the laborers would be very thankful to excavate it rather than to dig it by hand.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Probably put some plywood down on top of those stairs and just drive right over it with a mini.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the area underneath the extension is going to be exactly the same as it is now, right? Because it's just going to have the sonotube. So
Yes.
just remain ground under there.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Bob?
Thad, I had a question about a couple of things that are out on the marsh and so forth. I walked out towards the marsh. There's an old raft an old wooden raft, probably, I don't know, it's like southeast of the property, out in the marsh, right in that area there. Yeah.
A couple of things that showed up in the image, which is a few years old.
And then there's another like timber platform to the south, more to the south, kind of where that cutout, where the property line cuts out there, just out in the marsh, sitting there. I was wondering if those could be removed.
And we certainly, and technically the ownership of the property terminates up here, but we don't have a problem with going out there and picking up the debris that's floated in, taking that away. There'll be a dumpster on the site for the work.
Yeah, maybe you could hook up a chain to the excavator or something and pull them in or something. I don't know. Especially,
I'd rather get a few guys to pick them up rather than drag them through.
yeah, that raft is probably really heavy, but the platform I think could be picked up by hand. But it's again, that's going to be heavy too, unless you take a chainsaw to it or something, cut it up first.
Yeah, I'd rather point in that direction. Dragging it back will probably scar the marsh up.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I saw really. But if those could be removed, I think that would be a benefit.
Certainly would.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, the only thing that occurred to me with this project is, I guess you could technically argue that you're replacing a deck with an addition. You're going to have less infiltration, but it's probably insignificant in the big scheme of things here. So anyway, fairly straightforward project, it would seem, and I don't have any issue with it. So, do we have any changes here for this? Just a promise of a cleanup on the beach, and that's about it.
I'd go a step beyond promise. Just put it as a condition, and
We could do that.
be done where the order is closed out.
Yep. Thank you for offering.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 84 Cranberry Lane to the work session on January 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
I vote as aye as well, and we'll see you at the work session then. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next notice of intent is 65 Sears Road, Sears Point Summer LLC, map 11A, parcel 2-J14. SE 10-3518, addition to a dwelling, redevelop hardscape, landscape, addition, and removal of fence and invasive management.
Hello, Thad Eldridge again. I'll leave after this one, I promise. When we were last before you, there were a couple of odd and end questions. Janet was concerned about the areas. I provided a detail on the plan that show the various areas. It's an odd shape, and I think that's why estimating visually what the areas are just doesn't look right. So we'll call it an optical illusion and carry on. As mentioned at the last meeting, we have more than ample mitigation to cover everything. We've added a detail of the fence, post and rail style fence with a mesh to keep the dogs in, a 6-inch spacing underneath, and then a metal edging just so that the dogs can't dig underneath of it. I provided an estimate of the amount of fill needed for the driveway. It's 38 cubic yards. And I've also provided an estimate of 120 cubic yards of material to come out for the foundation. We've provided the details of performance standards for the aura, and we've provided a landscaping list with the strict native species highlighted. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Thad. Do you have any? Do you think you did address the essence of our questions? Bob has a question though.
Hi again, Thad. On the metal posts for the old fence that are going to be coming out, it was suggested that the metal be ground just to alleviate any sharp metal, for wildlife. Could we put a condition in the order for that?
Yes, and I've actually thought about this since then. There are going to be a number of caps remaining from the tops of the fences. If we can't grind them, if we just cap what's left behind, that would safeguard the wildlife. And by the time everything rusts away to nothing, it won't be a concern.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful if you could cap them. That would be great.
Yep.
Because one time, when I did visit this site one time, I think it was last year about this time when the septic was going in or something, I did come across 2 deer on that drive heading into where the house is. So I know there's plenty of wildlife in there.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
We would be happy with a condition in there to either grind it to make sure that it's not a sharp edge, or cap it somehow to make sure it's not a sharp edge.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I did have one. I may have miscommunicated on the question that I think that I had, which was the percentage. What I was asking for was a percentage of essentially foundation plants that are native, and I think what we got was a list of which ones are native, or an indication of which ones are native, but it didn't specifically address our general rule of thumb these days to have in the outer aura for foundation plantings to have roughly equal native and non-native at the very least. And I'm not sure if that's what you heard or not.
Unfortunately, now is that the outer aura, the inner aura, or?
Well, the inner aura, of course, should all be native. But in recent times, we have arrived at typically at an agreement for foundation plantings in the outer aura to be half and half percentage-wise in terms of square feet.
We can certainly have a plan set for the work session that shows 50% native versus 50% non.
Yeah, I think that'd be terrific. And that would be consistent with what we've been asking others to do. Okay. Without any other comments or questions, it would seem that we're ready for a work session.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 65 Sears Road to the work session on January 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And thank you, Thad.
Thank you.
The next one is our continuance, 3674 and 77 Sears Road, Patrick Brogan and Patricia Black. Did we already continue this?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, okay. map 11A, parcel 510, 310B, and 411. They want to continue until 12/15. They have some revised plans coming, or I think they came the other day, but
All right.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue 36, 74, and 77 Sears Road to 12/15/2021.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
I vote aye, and we will see you at the work session. Them,
No.
they're not here, but we'll see them.
On the 15th.
I'm sorry, you're right, the 15th of January.
No, December.
Oh, December. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm starting to fuzz out here too. Thank you. I'm thinking I'm already working on the next one here. All right.
the next one is 275 Champlain Road, Burton, Stanier, map 12A, parcel 2, SC 10-3512, deck relocation and invasive species management.
Who do we have? Here we go.
Hello, this is
Hello.
Katrine from Wilkinson. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, we can.
Great. I'm here with Don Monroe and Mike Ford as well, and I believe the applicant is on the call as well. So I'll just start off explaining our revised plan. So we heard the commission's thoughts and concerns raised in the first hearing, and we made the following changes that if you look on the cover sheet of our land management plan, you can see we've kind of provided bullets or cliff notes on our changes. So first, as seen on our restoration plan, we heard your thoughts on the tree removal specifically that we were proposing, and we've adjusted our approach to tree removal. Originally, we were proposing 13 trees to be removed, and now we're proposing 6. And that's really focused in the area, the removal is focused in the area of the proposed platform and also the existing structure, the stairway and platform area. So we're no longer proposing to remove any English oaks. Besides, there's one in the area of the platform stairway that would need to be removed just in order to remove all of the wooden debris. So there's only one English oak. We're keeping all the other English oaks that are existing in the project area. And we are keeping the cedar, the few oaks. There's actually one that's rather dead near the platform area. We're not proposing to remove that. So that would all stay. And like I said, instead of the 13 trees, we're now proposing 6 trees to be removed. Secondly, and one other thing to point out on that, I think one of the commissioners asked for a chart, and we provided that in the land management plan on the last page, on page 14. We've provided a chart that identifies each of those 6 trees and the species, if it's a tree or a sapling, and the reason for the proposed removal. So we did provide that info. Secondly, as I mentioned, we're proposing to remove those 6 trees, and as mitigation, we'd like to plant 12 trees, 2 eastern red cedars and 10 pitch pine, and that's identified on our restoration plan, and that would be for mitigation for the tree removal. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And lastly, one commissioner had a question regarding planting along the proposed stairway. And so you can see from our restoration plan, we're proposing to plant American beach grass on both sides of the stairway to ensure that that area remains and is stable from the very first day of the work. So overall, our project proposes 26,000 square feet of invasive plant removal, debris removal, and replanting. And this is all in an effort to provide more meaningful habitat for wildlife and better stormwater function on the site. And with that, I believe that Don is going to describe some of the changes on his plan.
Yes, through the chair, Katrine, can I share my screen?
I don't know. I
was the one
wasn't sharing.
sharing. Sorry, I was the one sharing, so I will
Oh, okay.
unshare and you should be able to.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's see, sure I can do this here. Can you all see that plan?
Yeah. Nope, not yet.
Not yet. All right, hold on. Let's see, share window. Still nothing yet, huh?
Is this Don, is this the plan that we have? I wonder if Nikki can.
Yeah,
share.
it is. It is the plan you have, correct.
Okay. All right.
Why
Yeah,
don't I
so
get
I have two more. I have one with trees, a picture of trees in the corner, and then I have the stair one. Which one were you?
the one with it actually has our logo on it. It's
There you go.
3.1.1.
Yep, now you're showing it. Yeah.
You can see it now.
Yes.
Can the commissioners see it?
Yes, we can see a
Yeah.
plan. I don't know who's sharing it, but yes.
Okay. So I've got a photograph up on the screen, but first of all, we did the same thing as Wilkinson. We took the suggestions and comments from the commissioners. One of the comments was they didn't see a notation on the plan as far as the deck spacing. That note is on the plan in the section view on sheet number 2. In the frame, actually in the framing plan, says decks spacing minimum 1/2 inch. Then also on page 1, there was a comment made about the materials. They wanted to make sure what the materials were. That's in note number 3. All lumber to be non-leaching, pressure treated, ACQ or MCA, or as approved by engineer. And Mike pointed out that we should probably in an order or a revision to the plan, not just say as approved by engineer, but as approved by the conservation agent through any changes that might be made to the materials, because we don't want to leave it just to the ACQ or MCA. The owner may use like cedar or some other material, but we'd want to be able to run that by the agent when the actual construction starts. So at the very least, we're looking and seeking approval of the ACQ and MCA in this location. Welcomed at this stage.
Thank you, Don. I'll open it up. 2 questions from commissioners. I'm looking at, I see a question from Bob.
Hi, Don. Hi, Katrine. How are you?
Great, thank you, Bob. How are you?
Good. I was wondering about the planting around the stairs. It says 18 inches on center for the beach grass on the edge, on the outside edge of the stairs, but nothing underneath the stairs, like something more shade tolerant. Is that possible to get something underneath the stairs too?
Sure. Or we could, I mean, the beach grass is gonna kind of grow at where the shade, I mean, where the sun allows it under the stairs, it's gonna kind of grow into there. I mean, we would be blanketing that area anyway, so maybe it would be the seed mix that we would put under the blanketing. Because then the seed is I mean, we'd be happy to plug something too, but I think if you seed it, the species are gonna figure out where they want to grow in terms of
More
the
shade
light.
tolerant ones, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. As long as there's something underneath there, that's fine.
Yep. Sure.
Is that for you, Bob? You took your hand down. Okay.
Yes,
So
that's it. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
all right,
it.
Janet.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to say, as the person who was very concerned about the proposed removal of trees. What I was having a hard time was in recognition of moving a dilapidated structure out of the NDZ and building a new one in the outer aura, which theoretically is a net benefit to the ecosystem, but it came at what I thought was a very high cost, and was having problems balancing whether that cost was worth it for this kind of thing. I just want to say thank you for listening, and the reductions are significant. 13 trees down to 6, and I know that 5 of those black cherries are very small, and only 1 English oak, and the mitigation going from 2 to 12 new trees. And I applaud you, especially for the 10 pitch pines, which are not, we don't normally see those proposed as mitigation. So I'm heartened to see that, because they're not everybody's favorite tree aesthetically, but they do provide important ecosystem services. So in balance, that brings this project back, in my view anyway, into an acceptable balance. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Mary?
Hi, this is Mary Sullivan. I was a little concerned with the wording in terms of when you're removing the old railroad ties that you might need to bring in fill. I can obviously see where some might be needed, but is it really necessary to remove all the railroad ties and replace it with fill? I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good thing. Or what is the quality of the fill?
Through the chair, let me make sure I get it right, Mary. So I'll answer it the way I think I heard it, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, it's necessary to remove the railroad ties, because leaving them with any kind of material that's still in them that could leach out, I think the owner and the ecosystem would prefer them removed. It would not necessarily be the case that we need to bring fill in, because once they're removed, we'll be able to determine if there's enough material just to grade what's there, which would be in and around where the proposed stairway would be. So I would like to defer to the agent during construction that the amount of fill would be minimal, and we would run that by, but I think there may be a chance where we won't have to bring in any fill. That's the hope, because once they're removed, we'll be able to make a better determination, but they seem to be primarily on the surface or 6 inches below grade, which is not a lot.
Okay.
And our land management plan specifies on page 7, it says if it is discovered that clean fill will be required to fill voids under the railroad ties, the conservation agent will be consulted for approval. So we wouldn't do it without her knowing about it.
Okay.
We can make that a condition.
Great.
All right. Thank you. And my other question is, it seems like the stairs have basically been abandoned. I mean, it doesn't look like they've been used in a couple of years. Is there really a need for stairs when there is no dwelling on the property or any occupants of the property?
That's a great question, Mary. I'll attempt it, but I'll ask Mike to step in too. That's a good question between need and, I guess, wants. But at the same time, because the property is so beautiful, as the commissioners that went and saw it, I think the Staniers would like to be able to have the advantage of being able to use something that was abandoned by previous owners, and that there was a stairway there before, and that the area that the stairway occupied will be somewhat unstable, that the planting and a stairway at this time, rather than coming back in the future if the property's developed, and then a stairway in an area where you might say, let's plant it, then you're just going to remove the plants at that time anyway. I'd rather see the stairway installed now, and then any planting that's done gets to an equilibrium to the existing elevated stairs, and then we'll have some growth that's going to take place over a period of time that we wouldn't otherwise gain if we wait for a later period. Let's do it now while we're doing the construction. That's just my engineering opinion.
All right. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Mary. Did Bob, you have another question, another hand up?
Yeah,
I
I
think
have another.
Mike's trying to,
Oh,
through the chair, I think Mike's trying to speak.
oh, are you trying to weigh in, Mike? You're muted. You're muted, still muted.
Still muted. Still muted, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Don covered it. I'm okay at this point, unless the commission wants to hear more about the request for the stairs.
I'll just interject. I'll ask the question right now. You still have to go through zoning. Is that not correct?
You're absolutely correct. We're on for the zoning board of appeals. We were on for last week. We continued because I reported to the zoning board that the Conservation Commission had asked for some additional information and some changes and needed to consider it further. And so it was best to wait and see what the commission's reaction to that was. The Board of Appeals thought that was wise. So we're on for next week before the Board of Appeals.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right, Bob, did you have, you say you had another question?
Couple of quick questions. Thank you. Jumping on to what Mary asked about the fill, how can you make sure that you're not bringing in any invasive weed seeds when you bring in the fill? That's for Katrine, I guess.
Yeah, through the chair, I think Katrine could probably answer that.
It's a good question. We would just, where we would be getting the fill. We have fill in the back of our shop here that we'd probably be using because it's not a huge amount. I don't think we'd be using a lot at all, just kind of to fill in voids. So we have clean fill that we know is clean because there's, we've been here for years and there's no invasives in it. So we'd probably just use it from our stock here, from our site, which is just like bearberry and Deschamps and pitch pines growing around in the area.
Okay, and the other question was, I know you're going to be planting a lot of material. I think I asked this before, but how are you going to water it all to make sure it survives?
That's the challenge. I think the time of year we'd want to plant, probably plant it early in the spring, where the rains will keep it watered for, for the very beginning of when the planting occurs. But we haven't figured out another way of watering it. We do have a large watering tank that we could use if during the middle of a drought, but we'd be continuing to monitor throughout, like say if there was a drought during the summer, we'd be making sure that the plants survived. But it's a little atypical because there's not a house nearby. So that's why it's key to use smaller material, smaller plants.
Okay, yeah. And the summers are getting hotter and drier, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Bob. Mary, is that a hand up from your previous hand up or a new hand up? So your old hand up, okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to what's been said. I agree with Janet's assessment that you have all listened to what bothered us about the project. You've addressed it. No matter how you feel about the project, from a zoning perspective, that's not within our purview. A little odd still to have something being built on a property where there is no inhabitant, but nevertheless, from an ecological perspective, it would seem to be a net gain. So without further ado, I think that with what you provided allows us to move forward to an order of conditions. That would be in the middle of in January.
January 5th.
January 5th, yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 275 Champlain Road to January 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you all. Good luck at zoning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Next up, we have 368 Sea Pine Road, Beth Cressley Goldstein, map 13K, parcel 35A, H133. This is a proposed plunge pool and site improvements. I spoke with John Schneibel recently, and he found out that they needed some ZBA approval, so they're going to work through that. But he did want to give at least a brief description and see if we had any major changes that we would like to the plan.
Good afternoon, John Schneibel here, Coastal Engineering. Lauren Cronin, landscape architect, is here with us. First of all, I didn't think there was anything with zoning issues, and I tried to get a contact with Sarah Clark, and she's not here today. I got this message yesterday. So, and when I looked at all of it, I didn't think there was, but well, I got to go see her and the building inspector and kind of hash that out. What's going on with all that? So what we show is, well, first of all, I'll get into the existing plan. We sent 4 plans in. First is the existing plan of the property. Hopefully you've seen that. We originally not replaced the house in 2010, but modified it and added, there had to be, there were some problems there with the building. And so we've added, I think 3 sides of the building. And so we did that, got approvals. We've got a catwalk that we had got approved on. And so now I think the Goldsteins are actually looking to kind of refresh their property. They kind of looked at it and said, well, we'd like to do some things different than what we had originally there. And so what they're proposing is kind of expanding their driveway a little bit, get rid of lawn, and then kind of redo the stairs to the front, and then redo some of the stairs to the upper portion of the lot on the north side, and then also do some changes on the patio on the backside towards the water, and then redoing the walkway to the south of the building, and getting rid of the walkway that's near the coastal bank, removing that, and then changing out the deck that's right next to the building, and then actually adding a plunge pool that is small. It's fairly small. I believe it's 9 by 30, if I remember right, and it will be. I didn't write a construction protocol for it, but we've done a number of these, and typically we'll, bring a crane and put it in where the building, where the driveway is, and actually after the area is excavated, actually kind of bring it over and place it in that spot. As you can see, there's going to be, as part of the, I'll call it the refreshment of the property. We're looking to do an awful lot of plantings, kind of barren right now, and also there's a, and I'll let Lauren describe it, the little pollinator garden that will actually get rid of some more lawn, and really that's it for now. I'd like to get input from you guys, what you want. Again, we don't have a DEP number. That's 1, and 2, I got to go see the building inspector and the building community development person to go over what is their issues or what's going on with them. So I don't know, Lauren, did you want to cut in with some information?
Sure. I'm Lauren Cronin from Gregory Lombardi Design, landscape architect. I think we're proposing a fairly extensive planting plan here. Most of it is to mitigate for invasive species removal on kind of the north property line of the northern property line, and then below the kind of existing rear terraces. And then there's also a bunch of bare areas. Either plants didn't survive the exposure of the site, or for erosion issues, various things. So we're proposing to replant all the bare areas with more appropriate coastal native plants that can withstand the saline environment here. So that's, and I'm happy to answer more detailed questions about the plan, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll just take my turn going first with a series of thoughts and questions. And just a couple of technical things. There's one of the first map that was provided. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a description. And it does have a date. But the other maps do have a description and number. I don't know exactly what that map is supposed to refer to. It's the first one in a series of maps in your application.
Right. This is the plan that from Greg Lombardi Design. It says like for permitting only.
I think they all, yes,
they
all say that, but
yeah, this is the one that's kind of more, just kind of a blow up really of the mitigation plan. Kind of help you there's a lot going on.
There is definitely a lot going on here.
so I think that was, we placed that in there just
just for clarity, you have a mitigation plan and labeled it as such. You have a site conditions plan, and then you also have proposed site improvements. I'm not sure what the difference is between. No, that's existing conditions. I'm sorry.
Existing conditions.
The other plans are clearly marked.
Okay.
Just let us know what that plan is about.
Yep.
If it's needed at all, et cetera. Also, while talking about the plans, at least I'm a digital person. I don't get the paper copies, so sometimes this happens where some of the labels for resource lines disappear, and I think that's happened here for these maps. I see lines which are probably the 50 and 100 foot marker, I'm guessing, but they're not labeled as such. So all those should have labels where they don't exist. This is the first two maps, I guess, so that way.
Yeah, they're on the plan, at least.
The hard copy, perhaps.
Yeah, the site condition plan has that. Yep.
Yeah, I just don't see them in the digital copy.
Yep.
And that's where I think sometimes the printout, when you save it as a PDF, unless you set the margins correctly, those will disappear.
It does. Well, Nikki brought up here, you can see on our plan, the blue, that's the 100, and then the red is the 50 from the coastal bank. And then in
the colored maps, I'm sorry. Yeah, the color map has them. The color maps do. It was the first.
I see.
Don't.
Okay.
Now, when I was there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked at a lot of properties that day. This is one where I believe there were a number of fairly sizable trees marked ostensibly for removal all around the property. And if my memory is correct, are those indicated on the mitigation plan, which is, I think, where they would normally want to be noted.
Yeah, let me.
The only tree that is going to be removed is a river birch that's right up against the house in kind of a planter on the north side of the house. There should be no other trees being removed.
All right. Well, I'll ask my fellow commissioners when they speak whether they saw what I thought I saw. because my notes to myself were that there were a bunch of.
We marked all the trees that are substantial in size. As Lauren said, none of them are going to be removed except that.
Oh, so those are not to be removed. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
No, not at all. No. Plan to keep
Good.
all of those.
Good to know. And
it says kind of in the regulation to mark them, you know, with a.
I think typically when we see a tree with a ribbon around it,
yeah,
that's telling us that it's coming, that it's proposed to be removed.
No, none of those.
Okay, so only the river birch. Good, because that helps a lot. I was going to have something to say about that. Feel better already. And you are adding, I think you're adding a service bearing 3-seaters. Is that correct?
Yeah, there as a service berry and yeah, I think 3-seaters on the north property line.
Right. That's all I have for the moment. I'm just going to go to the hands up, and that would be Karen.
I just have a couple questions. The modifying of the driveway, is that going to be, what sort of materials are going to be used for that?
Well, presently there's stone. It's going to be the same. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, it's no different. That grass that was there. Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren,
and
right?
then
Yep.
you say you're installing new stone steps and veneer retaining walls. What is a veneer retaining wall?
It's a wall that has a concrete footing and core to it, and then the field stone is applied to the.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wasn't familiar with that verbiage. My next question is the boardwalk, the elevated boardwalk and the deck.
Yeah.
What materials are going to be used for those two things?
The surface will be ipe to match the existing decks that are there.
Is there, okay. Is it, can light get through? Can, how is this, how's it going to work? And with the boardwalk, what's the spacing? What sort of materials?
It's 1x4 ipe with 1/4 or 1/2 inch gaps between the boards. So there's some light penetration.
Okay, that's it.
All right, Janet.
Thanks, Bob. Just to follow up, Lauren, on that, when you say 1/4 to 1/2, is that, how does that vary? Is it, which parts, why, or is that to be determined later, either 1/4 or 1/2?
Well, it could be determined, or also there's some variance in how they install the boards.
Okay, we would, I know I'm speaking for myself, prefer the 1/2 inch when it's feasible. To allow for the most light penetration as possible. I noticed there's a reference on the note on the plan to a fence. I think it's to surround the condensers. Is there more information on the material and the size and what that fence is all about?
It hasn't been fully developed yet, but it would be a wood fence. The idea is to screen the view of those condensers.
So a stockade, essentially.
Yeah, and then a vine that would grow on it.
Planted.
Yeah.
Let me just check and see. Where was that?
It's on the north side of the house. There's like 4 or 5 AC condensers that are little squares along the northwest side of the house.
Okay, I see. There it is. Okay. So only one tree is to come out. As I look at your proposed mitigation plan, between the house and the coastal bank, will any lawn remain there or will it all be planted as mitigation?
In the house, on the kind of downhill side, on the, to the
On the
right side of
water
the
side.
document?
On the water side, between the pool, the edge of the pool and the coastal, and the top of the coastal bank.
No, there's no lawn to be out there.
No
It'll
lawn.
all be native grasses with the native shrubs that are.
So where then does the lawn pick back up again? Out on the driveway side, and some's being removed?
The only lawn on the property is going to be on the driveway side.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's being reduced in size.
It is, yes.
And I will note it's outside of our jurisdiction for the most part, because it's, well, it's in the, part of it's in the flood zone, but.
It is in the flood zone, yeah.
Okay, but within the aura, within the NDZ and the outer aura, there won't be any lawn. It'll be native plantings.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
and there's a removal of that walkway that's there between where the plunge pool is proposed to the bank. There's a walkway, and that's all going to be removed, and mitigation plantings put there also. So
Okay, so that's what I was thinking. I was trying to understand if that walkway, so on the water side where the pool ends, and I assume this is an infinity pool, there is no walkway to be installed there.
right,
The pool will end and it bangs up right against all the mitigation plants.
mitigation,
Just
correct.
the wall that surrounds the pool. I see it. Okay. You answered the thing about the stone driveway. There is no lawn on the resource area. One tree coming out. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. We have a hand up from Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, I just have a few questions. There's a sizable oak, like right above the pool, the proposed pool. That's going to remain, correct?
Correct.
And is there going to be like an auto cover on the pool?
There will be, yeah.
Okay, so you might get some debris from that tree in the pool, but it will be covered most of the time, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay. And when the new boardwalk is installed, and I think there's a larger deck is going to be installed, correct? More than what's there now?
It's a little larger, yeah. Yep.
And there's a lot of grass growing to the edge of that. Will that be protected when the construction is done, is in progress?
Yeah, the goal is to keep as much of that grass that's growing there as possible. So the idea is just pull up the stones and insert the walkway.
Okay, and if it is damaged, that can be replanted?
Yeah, the mix we're planting back includes those same grasses, so.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And there's just one river birch. I had the same concerns that Bob had about the trees. I saw them all flagged, and I was wondering if they were going to come out.
No, sorry. I warn you.
And there's just one river birch on the edge of the house that will be taken out because it's too close to the house. Is that the story?
Exactly. It's in that existing wall that's by those AC condensers, and it's just kind of overgrown. It's too big for its location.
Okay. I think those are the only questions I had at the moment. Yeah, there's a lot going on, is right.
But no addition to the building at all. This is all kind of accessories to the dwelling itself. So.
It's all hardscape.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Now that I understand the project much better now, and I do applaud the what appears to be all native plantings everywhere, and plenty of it. In addition, in exchange for a very modest increase overall in the NDZ and in the outer R. So I didn't hear anyone express any alarm about anything particularly. Oops, Janet has a hand up. I spoke too soon.
No, not alarmed, just flipping back and forth between these plans. I didn't hear anybody ask about the new stone terrace that's going to be installed to the north side of the wooden deck pool. Is that dry laid to be?
Yes,
It
that'll
is.
be.
It is dry. Okay. Just me. Thank you.
All right, so I don't think we have a whole lot of requests for changes. They're just the technical changes that I pointed out with regard to the plans, with the resource labels, with the plan with no name. What else were people asking for? I don't recall anything. We've gotten clarity on the fact there's just the one river birch coming out. All those other great trees are just tagged for some other reason.
Well, I'll go through that. It says when you mark the following, areas with colored tapes, all it says is any trees or branches over 2 inches in diameter must be flagged with tape. So,
oh, okay.
So we took that literally.
Yeah, you okay. You did what you read, okay, but
okay, yeah, we tried to follow the rules.
It's just apparently you're the only one who follows the rules. So anyway,
I know. I'm sorry. Just one other thing as you're making the list, Bob. I know we talked briefly about how this pool is a preformed pool that will be lowered into an area that will be excavated to hold it. Since all of this is happening in the resource area and the staging of the crane, I would like to see a bit more detail on the construction protocol and how that's to be done.
Yep.
And how the coastal bank, it will be protected from any disturbance during that construction.
Yep, I'll give you definitely a detail on that.
Thank you. And you're picking up a 30-foot long pool and hoisting it up over the house and dropping it down. That's some process.
Yeah, we've done that a number of times. Everybody wants a pool, so we're.
No kidding.
Don't we know it? Sometimes I think it's the bane of our existence here. Okay, so we have requests for additional documentation, but we don't seem to have any requests for any substantive changes to the plan. So that would lead me to say that we're in position for a motion to go to a work session.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 368 Sea Pine Road to the work session on January 5th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. See you at the work session.
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
January
5th. 5th. Okay, fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's pause for a moment. How are we doing, Nikki and Crystal? I'm not paying attention to the time. Are we on track, you think?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Okay. We have, we only have 3 left.
Yeah, we have, I mean, there maybe are 3 longer ones, but we're only halfway through not even halfway through, we're about halfway through our time. So I think we're doing pretty good.
We're doing fine. Okay. Do we have anyone want to take a break? Or if
Yes.
Janet says yes.
Janet says yes. How about just like a 5 or 6 minute break? Be back in a
Minutes would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Right.
All right, we're ready to go. The next one is 212 Sears Road. 212 Sears Road LLC, map 10A, parcel 1-12, proposed shorefront restoration and reinforcement of the high marsh. And the representative, Seth, is here and looks like he's good to go.
Right, thank you. For the record, Seth Wilkinson Ecological Design. Don Monroe is also here on behalf of Coastal Engineers Record for the project. This is yet another project on Sears Road. You did see a somewhat similar design to this 2 or 3 months back at number 157, which I believe is 2 properties to the east of this. Just since you had the benefit of a site visit and we're in the area, I thought I'd provide that perspective. We are dealing with a narrower beach at this location. So you essentially have a coastal bank that transitions to a fairly narrow beach and then a salt marsh. And the salt marsh sort of diminishes as you get closer to the landing, which is adjacent to the boathouse, which is shown on the plan that's presently up on the screen. So the goal is to reestablish a high marsh community. The low marsh is fairly well represented here. I think that the reason for the diminishing of the marsh in this location is it's a high use area. A lot of folks leaving in dinghies to go out to their boats, fishing and shellfishing, et cetera, at this location. So looking to sort of restore the natural functions of the property, we thought we could best be served with a high marsh approach. There'll still be some beach between the existing marsh and the proposed marsh. I don't think there's as much foot traffic in this along this stretch of shoreline, but that is certainly still afforded. Where the beach walkers go is essentially where the construction access would be. We can generally install these interventions with just a small mini excavator and a small track loader to bring in the materials. Very similar to the project at 157. This is a marsh a little bit wider. We're going with a 9-foot wide marsh rather than a 6-foot wide marsh. So we can have a nice gentle slope up to the coastal bank landform. Not all of the coastal bank even needs fiber rolls. We're just sort of working with the existing grades. This is a lower bank than some other portions of this shoreline. So we're transitioning from the marsh up to 2 fiber rolls at the highest point, tapering down to 1 as you get closer to the boathouse. And then on the other side of that little drainage area adjacent to the boathouse, the land is quite low, so we don't need any fiber rolls at all. The composition of the plants for the area would range from at the higher elevations, American beach grass, switchgrass, and seaside goldenrod. As we get to the lower elevations, we'd be transitioning to spike grass and salt marsh hay, sort of the mid-marsh species. And that's all in this very important sort of transitional ecotone, which is so important for wildlife. Then the bank itself, the fiber rolls would be colonized with American beach grass, and then the idea is it would just fade right into the existing landform. We've got a near vertical slope here, so fortunately the bank isn't very tall, but we are looking to fully vegetate the landform, and we think this is the best approach for doing that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission might have, unless Dawn has anything to add.
Through the chair, no, I don't have anything to add. Seth explained it pretty well. It looks like a good application for this location because of the landform behind. It's relatively low. So I think this kind of gradual approach, the gradual change in the topography with the way the installation's proposed should do well here. I think fronting salt marsh, that's going to give some good protection to any wave action. So other than that, no, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
All right, I'll just open this up to commissioners at this point. And we have Bob.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. There's that channel where it looks like some kind of a drainage channel off the street that's adjacent to the boathouse.
Yes.
And around it, it looks like there's a finely manicured turf around it. Could that be detrimental to that bank around that drainage channel? Just having that low grass like it is?
Just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're talking about. In the upland areas adjacent to the boathouse?
Yes.
Well, generally the most important areas to have the deeper rooted species is on the sloping areas, which is certainly what's proposed here. I believe that is essentially the path to access the boathouse, which is why it's more of a turf. That's their access point to get into the boathouse from the property. So compared to other path materials like gravel or mulch or something like that, we know turf doesn't have as deep of a root system, but it does have a root system, which is, in my opinion, better than the the absence of any root system whatsoever. But we are proposing to stabilize the shoulders, which is where the land slopes away, and I think that's where it's most important to have the deepest rooted species.
Yeah, and it seems like the area around the boathouse itself is pretty good, huh? That area, it's not really eroding.
Yeah, no, I mean, we haven't seen any signs. That it's sort of an unusual drainage channel in that if you poke around, there's actually a low pipe in the opening. It's closer to the beach area, so water can flow into that drainage, but the hydraulic connection to the pond, which is on the other side of the subject parcel's driveway, is actually sort of subsurface, just sort of bubbles up out of the sand in the rack line, and seems to be working well. We're not proposing anything to change that outlet at all.
And you're going to bring in soils that are going to be put over the fiber rolls, or is that above the fiber rolls?
So there's we're essentially trying to simulate peat in the marsh area. So we use a combination of organic compost and loose coconut fiber and compatible sediment. Those being the sort of primary building blocks of salt marsh peat, and the salt marsh peat will form over time in the presence of the salt marsh root systems. So that's sort of the composition of the marsh, and then some compatible sediment would be placed over the fiber rolls as well. We use a trigger in projects like this of 30% exposure to determine when it's time to replace that sediment. That's just like clean sand, like a beach sand. And so when we see about a third of the fiber rolls exposed, we know it's time to place that sediment. That way the important function of coastal banks to provide sediment to the adjacent coastal resource areas is preserved.
And one last question, the salt marsh that exists today, is there any need to increase the planting or the vegetation in that area like you did at the other property that we looked at recently?
Yeah, it is a very similar approach. All the planting will be in the marsh that's shown in the crosshatched area on this what's on the screen right at the moment. Generally speaking, direct planting into the marsh is not usually terribly effective. Unfortunately, early on we tried to do that a bit. We had limited success, and it primarily has to do with just the inundation period that those areas are subject to. When the salt marsh species grow up there, they have a lot more extensive root systems and can tolerate longer inundation periods. When you plant a small 2-inch plug into that area, it just typically can't get its roots colonizing a large enough area to support it through those longer inundation periods. So the hope is that if additional plants are needed down the road, they could colonize the landward from the marsh that's being built, which is at the appropriate elevation for new plantings and the inundation periods that they will tolerate.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Janet?
Thanks, Bob. I have a question, and maybe it's for Nikki. So we have an open existing order of conditions on this property for native vegetation installation on the coastal bank in this area, which, as I recall, was partly, at least, for the purposes of stabilizing the bank. Well, what happens to those plants? Are they removed, and what happens to that order of conditions?
Sure, I'm happy to take a stab at that, and if Nikki wants to add anything, by all means. We're only proposing to restore areas where all the vegetation has been lost presently. So we wouldn't be going landward where there is some native vegetation established. I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with that. We hadn't worked on the prior vegetation program, but I don't see the two as being mutually exclusive. We would just be knitting together the two areas so everything's fully naturalized.
Okay, just because I'm looking at the planting plan from that order, and it's showing installation of plants going below the top of the bank down about 2/3 of the way down toward the bottom. So did those plants go in and then they didn't survive?
Yeah, so that's sort of the reason why we're here with this project is it in our opinion, vegetation alone, which I think was in the coastal engineering alternatives analysis number 3.
Yeah.
That was successful in the flatter locations and the areas which there is a section of revetment here, as you can see on the plan. Above that, where the toe is stabilized, the vegetation was able to take. We're looking to stabilize the toe with a much softer approach here using a salt marsh, but we're confident once we do that, we'll be able to stabilize the area above.
Okay. And the reference to the stone wall that's called out around the slate patio on these plans, that's not proposed, right? That's just in existence?
That's existing.
Even though it's dark, it looked like it might be proposed. Okay, so there's no new stone wall going up. Okay.
Correct. That's through the chair. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, and as you said, Seth, the protocol will be more or less the same as at 157 Sears, except that the marsh now, this high marsh is right up against the toe. That's not going to be separated by any beach.
Yeah, we don't have as much. Basically, we don't have the breadth of beach here that we did to the east at 157. So we have done a project like this in Chatham. It was a few years back on Woodland Way, and it's been very successful to this day. And the marsh, it's a high transitional high marsh area that just sort of supported the toe of the bank, and then the bank above was able to stabilize.
Okay. And one last question: along this bank, and I'm not sure if it's exactly in the area that you're talking about, there are a fair number of good-sized rocks, large cobble or small stone rocks that are embedded in the coastal bank. Because we had made a finding before at the last one that they were actually helping to stabilize. Are they being removed as part of this and then replaced with the fiber rolls?
In the footprint of where the hatching is showing, they would just be incorporated into the marsh. So yeah, we're just looking to basically build marsh and around the existing cobble, and then supplement the cobble as needed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Seeing no other hands, I will just opine about a couple of things. This, I will admit, when I was there, I didn't quite understand. So the purpose of the project was stated as being to prevent erosion of the bank, and when I was looking at it, it didn't necessarily seem to be a great risk. But I'm not a professional, so just that is the first thing that occurred to me when I looked at it. Compared to a lot of banks that I see, this didn't seem to be eroding. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or Seth.
Sure. I think it's somewhat a perspective issue because the bank is just not that tall. But in the central portions of the project area, right up to where the existing cobble is laid upon the bank, sort of riprap fashion, we really don't. It's a near vertical face, and that vegetation has been lost. So it doesn't take much of a storm at this point to really erode that shoreline back. And given that this house it isn't too far from the coastline, we thought it was imperative at this point to try to stabilize the embankment as quickly as possible. But there's always this perception issue when you look at a bank that's maybe 4 to 5 feet high, which is what this is along the shoreline. Even when it's totally eroded and destabilized, it doesn't look that bad because it's only 5 feet tall. And when you're looking at if we use 157 just to compare and contrast, the scarp was about 4 to 5 feet high there, and a little higher in a couple areas, but a lot of it was that height. And then it has a much higher bank above it. You can sort of see all this destabilized vegetation, and then vegetation which is yet to be destabilized above that. And so the perception is that the erosion is worse when in fact it's about the same. And in my opinion, actually 212 is a little bit more imperiled, because at this point it's just going to start moving landward with that erosion, whereas at 157 it would have to destabilize all the vegetation all the way up the bank, and then that retreat would occur after that. So yeah, in my opinion, it's a little bit more of a perception, but there's really not a lot of vegetation left on this bank, and that concerns us.
Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's sort of preventative rather than fixing erosion that's occurring right now. But
True.
I guess you see erosion where I might not see it. All right, so back to the riprap. I do remember the previous project that basically we concluded at the time that there was sort of a poor man's revetment laid down there. It was just a stone that was tossed on the bank and by somebody in long ago. It didn't necessarily constitute. It was debatable whether it constituted a unlicensed revetment or not. In the area where your work will be performed, I actually didn't pick up on the fact that there's riprap existing in that area as well, or just in part of it, or most of it's just a part.
Yeah, not nearly the density that you see where it sort of reads as a revetment on the screen right now. There's just the occasional rock and cobble, smaller rocks, like the way that they're piled up further to the west. And so my answer to Janet was really just that any stones that are currently along that stretch, which are again much more sparse, much less dense, they would just be incorporated into the marsh program.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was my recollection. It was much less so in that spot. So this goes back to my next question. Goes back to sort of a little debate I've had, I guess mostly with you over the last couple of years, which is your in this case it's the high marsh will be composed of 50% cobble, which are 8-inch to 10-inch stone. And I remember in the early days that we quibbled over the size of the cobble, but it seems to be every inching upward in terms of size and percentage. And I just wonder if you could tell me or us, what is the upper limit on that? When does it become? I mean, the gross question is, when does it become a CES?
Sure. Actually, if you compare it to some of the first project of this type, which was developed in consultation with DEP, was at I think it's 498 Shore Road, over by the fish pier, and in that we used 10 to 12-inch cobbles, and we've actually since been reducing that. So now we're using 8 to 10. Technically speaking, I was corrected by a coastal geologist in another town, where cobble is only up to 10 inches. After 10 inches, it's not cobble anymore. But what drove that was actually more just that we didn't. We've had the benefit of putting in, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of these projects now, and it appears that the 8 to 10 inch is sufficient to provide that important ballasting of the marsh. And again, this is a marsh that's in a velocity zone. We still do marshes without any cobble, but those are almost exclusively now in areas where we're in an A zone and not a velocity zone, or not subject to regular tidal action boat wakes, which you definitely get here. So we've actually stabilized at that 8 to 10, down from the original 10 to 12, and it's only about 50% of the overall composition of the marsh. So again, it's really just to hold the marsh, give the marsh integrity to take off, and it's modeled after other cobbly marshes that we've seen around the Cape and Islands that just naturally resist sea level, the more frequent and intense storms that we're seeing along the coastline. So this is really just an approach to try to get these marshes to persist and last long term.
Yeah, I get the goal. I just want to make sure that we're not in any danger of running afoul of any sort of definitions that make it look and act and seem and smell as if it were a CES. So, for example, if it were 75% of this type of cobble, would that be a CES?
I don't know. I don't think DEP has been that specific, and I don't know if they've been asked. When I spent a lot of time with Jim Mahala, the section chief at the Southeast region, when we were developing this for 498 Shore Road back in 2018, I believe it was. And he went to the chief regulatory policy person at DEP, and they really went through that, and they were very confident that the cobble reinforced marsh that was installed at 498 Shore and then later at Woodland did not meet the state's criteria or definition of a CES. And again, those were spec'd at the higher cobble. It was still 50%. I don't know where the magic number is, frankly. I would say sort of conceptually, when you're, if you can't grow plants in it, and establish a marsh, then the cobble is no longer sort of part of your planting medium. It's maybe at that point more of a CES. But we feel strongly that this is really just the minimum that's needed to establish a long-lived marsh. The other thing I would say is that, and it was noted in our work protocol, this is a coastal adaptation strategy, something we're thinking a lot. We've been thinking a lot more about in the last decade with accelerated sea level rise models, and we may find that over time we need to add even more elevation to these marshes. So having something that won't compress like a cobble layer will be important in the future. So if we need to add 6 inches of elevation, say 8 years from now, we come back in and say we're concerned with how much time this cobble reinforced marsh is spending underwater. We don't, we're seeing some decline of some of the marsh species. We're seeing low marsh species moving into this area and they're struggling. Those are the type of indicators that would tell us that you need a little bit more elevation. And so we may just want to, come in and add, 6 inches of compatible materials for growing marshes, and having something that is heavy. Sand is heavy, so having something that wouldn't compress down, i.e. the cobble, could be very effective down the road and important down the road. Again, not asking permission for that today, but we do feel that could be important.
Well, in those cases, I hope that you bring along with you some sort of statements from DEP that bolster your contention that we are still, even then, not approaching CES level. We're not the experts on that. And I actually did a little searching. I couldn't find anything that was anything concrete that I could point to for this discussion. So I'm going to have to sort of trust your professional opinion at this stage.
I can also tell you the DEP does, review all these projects when they first come in, and typically, if they are concerned it's a CES, you'll see those comments right when they issue the file number. I don't know if Dawn knows if there's been a file number issued yet, or Nikki, but I've certainly seen that with projects that like incorporate, gabion baskets or something like that. DEP will typically comment. They've never commented on any of our cobble reinforced marshes as being a CES.
Okay, good to know. Going back to something that Janet said, referring to an earlier, was that a mitigation area, Janet? That was
No.
Is that no? It was a what
The
was
project was to stabilize the bank, remove the invasives, and plant natives.
it was a restoration project.
Yep.
And it does overlap with this area. Is that closed out, or
That's
the
what
previous?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so. It was only about 2 years ago, I guess, something like that.
So if that one isn't closed, then my recollection is that we have a bit of an issue if you're trying to restore an area that's under an open restoration plan.
Through the chair, it's Don Monroe. I think that order was more related to the area to the west more than it was in this area, but I could be wrong. The thing is that I wouldn't want to close out an order that might have some planting related to the existing cobble rock in that area around where the dock is.
Agreed.
Right.
So I do think we do need to get clarity on that, just to be sure. Teresa, are you speaking about, wish to speak about this?
Hi, yes, good afternoon, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. First of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the previous project. The previous project was proposed mainly to manage invasive vegetation, not to stabilize. The area was overrun with invasive vegetation. We were restoring native vegetation in the area. At the time, Mr. Murphy had contacted us because he was concerned about the invasive vegetation moving into other upland areas, upland portions of his property that were being managed by Schumacher, and they were unable to hold the invasive species at bay and hold that back. So that was what we had originally proposed. And I do recall at the time that there was a question regarding the cobble or the stones on the bank and how long they'd been there. And it was determined that after reviewing historical satellite imagery and aerial photos that had been there for quite some time. And Mr. Murphy himself had provided some testimony from the previous owners to the fact that that had been something that previous owners had been adding to many, many years before even the Wetlands Protection Act came to be. We did not propose planting. I was just reviewing the plans as Seth was discussing the area where they're proposing to do the fiber rolls, and I was a little bit confused because what does look like a revetment on the current plans is not showing as such on the plans that were previously done by J.M. O'Reilly. But we did not plant in that area specifically. Most of our planting was located within the 50-foot buffer, not on the coastal bank itself. We were generally managing invasive vegetation in that area and letting native vegetation that was already existing sort of reestablish. So just as a quick background on
well,
that.
thank you. Yeah, that's very, very helpful. So it sounds like maybe there's not an overlap.
I don't believe so. We have been continuing with follow-up invasive species management and have done so through this season. The order of conditions was issued in 2019, so we are close to requesting a certificate of compliance on that. And if Mr. Murphy would like us to, I feel confident that we could request the certificate of compliance on that now.
Well, that might make things cleaner, just in case there is the slightest bit of overlap. It just, as you know, that's not really allowed.
Sure, understood entirely. Yes.
Okay. Well, then we'll proceed with the assumption that there's little, if no, overlap, and that'll be cleared up with potentially the closing of the previous project. All right, where are we? Did anybody else have anything here? I mean, we've had some academic discussions here about CESs and so forth, but as far as the project itself is concerned, I didn't hear any substantive concerns. Correct me if I'm wrong. And hearing none, I think that we are ready to move forward. Bob.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we send 212 Sears Road to the work session, continue it until January 1st, 2022 for an order of conditions.
It's January 5th.
January 5th, I'm sorry.
Latin second.
Thank you, Karen. Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And that is unanimous. And thank you all. Thank you, Teresa.
Yes, thank you.
The next notice of intent is, no, sorry, I'm getting back to you somehow. 212 Sears Road. No,
that's what we just did.
Sorry. 306 Hardings Beach Road, Daniel and Julie McLaughlin, map 8B, parcel 10, construction of a pool and patio.
Good afternoon, David Clark Engineering. Also called into the meeting is Jim Reichfeld, who's the landscape architect for the project, and also Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax, who is handling the mitigation restoration portion. This project is basically a redevelopment of the water side of the house where there's an existing deck and turf lawn. The owners would like to put in a swimming pool and expand the terraces out there. Most of the area right to the 50-foot no disturb zone line is currently turf lawn or hardscape. So all the work that you see on the plan is pretty much within either turf lawn or redevelopment of existing hardscape. The net increase in site coverage in the 50 to 100 is just over 1,000 square feet. And Teresa has prepared a mitigation plan, restoration plan for the no disturb zone, which has been actively cut for view purposes over the last, I don't know, 20 plus years, I believe. So if there's any questions on the Clark Engineering site plan, be happy to answer them. Jim's here to talk about the landscape, hardscape portion of it. And as I said, Teresa's here also.
All right, thank you, David. Why don't we just go ahead and hear from everybody so we can get the big picture, including Teresa.
Sure, I can discuss the mitigation next, and then Jim could perhaps talk a little bit about the proposed hardscape. So basically, what we have here is, I think David discussed the resource areas, land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal bank, and the aura 50 and 100-foot buffer zones to the coastal bank. There's no estimated or priority habitat on the site, and Biomap 2 shows no critical natural landscapes. The overstory is mainly, the canopy layer consists mainly of pitch pines and a few red and white oaks. There are several historically topped, which I think is a generous term, pine and oaks that have been cut down to about 4 feet tall. Although they're surviving and they're there, and you can see in photos on pages 3 and 4 of our land management plan that they're green and they're continuing to survive. However, the area with the amount of disturbance that's happened, as David pointed out, over the last 20 years or so, we do see a significant amount of invasive vegetation, namely bittersweet and shrub honeysuckle, as well as greenbrier and raspberry, which are, of course, native but can be very aggressive in these areas. In addition to the invasive vines and shrubs that have colonized the area, we do have a good shrub layer, mostly of beech plum, bayberry, arrowwood, chokeberry, with a significant amount of rugosa rose, which of course is non-native, and as well as native goldenrods found throughout the area. So we're proposing to remove invasive vegetation, restore and protect the native vegetation that's existing in the area. We are proposing to remove the pitch pines that have been cut down to 3 to 4 feet. They aren't viable. They will not become mature canopy trees. And the goal is to restore this area with something that's going to be allowed to maintain the historical views that have been managed on this property without the need for ongoing disturbance in the buffer zone. So we're proposing to manage approximately 7,040 square feet of this area within the buffer zone, remove invasive vegetation, revitalize existing native vegetation that we uncover in the invasive species management process. We are going to support the existing the canopy-sized trees, perhaps with some regenerative pruning. However, the trees have been pruned quite significantly over time. I don't think they need any regenerative pruning at this time. We'll be restoring the area with 135 native shrubs, 217 perennials, and replacing that area right at the top of the, just off the pool with a number of bearberry and low-growing ground cover species. We are proposing to leave, the goal is to plant out as much of the 50-foot buffer zone as possible. We'd like that 50-foot buffer to be entirely vegetated. However, recognizing that we do need some access and circulation to allow for maintenance, et cetera, around the front of the pool or to the north of the pool, we are proposing to leave a small strip of lawn, which would be a fescue clover lawn, just so that there's an opportunity for property owners to maintain and not step on or damage shrubs that we're proposing. We're not proposing to plant right up to the edge of the pool. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed mitigation and restoration.
Thank you, Teresa. Go ahead and open it up for any questions from commissioners. We have one from Bob, at least one.
Okay, Teresa. On the left side, the western side of where you plan on removing all the invasives and so forth, and then replanting. On the neighbor's side of the on the other side of the property line, there seems to be, existing invasive plants as well. How is there any way that this property owner can get together with the other property owner and have those invasives removed as well? Or can you put like a mow strip on the left side on the western property line so that those existing invasives don't encroach?
Absolutely. And we have discussed there's almost a little peninsula or island of invasive vegetation that runs along that western property boundary. I will absolutely speak to the McLaughlins and have them contact their neighbors about managing, because basically on the property just to the west or the southwest, we've just got this peninsula of invasive vegetation, and then it quickly transitions into their lawn area. So I would certainly be very comfortable asking the McLaughlins to reach out to the neighbors and perhaps doing something together to remove that strip of invasive vegetation just along the west. And if the abutting property owners are resistant to that, we can certainly create a mow strip along that edge. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was really all I really had. But I think it's a good project in that you'll be getting rid of a lot of invasive vegetation. You'll be replacing the existing vegetation with low-growing plants, so the view will be maintained, properly maintained, with more suitable plants. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. To anybody else? We have Janet. Go ahead, Janet. I think you're muted.
I'm muted. Teresa, can you characterize or describe in this area that the NDZ with the exception of the strip that's going to be needed to be a fescue lawn for access to pool maintenance. What is the current, beyond the lawn, what is the current extent of the invasives in this area? How invaded?
So we do have, if you look at the photos on page 4 of the land management plan that we share, the existing conditions. So basically what we've got is there are some pitch pines mainly on the more to the eastern. You can see that on the eastern side of the property, kind of near at the edge of the 50-foot buffer, there are some canopy pitch pines. And then as we move towards the west, there are some pitch pines that have been cut to about 4 feet tall. As we continue to move further west, the vegetation is mostly invasive. There's a mix of rugosa rose, honeysuckle, and it's all covered by bittersweet vine. And that's sort of the edge, the transition edge between the lawn area and the vegetated area.
Okay, so that photo on the lower left is representative of that western side.
Correct, yes.
And those canopy pitch pines are not slated for removal?
Absolutely not. Those canopy pitch pines will remain. You can see them on page 4 in the upper right-hand side. Yep. Those are the existing canopy pitch pines. And if you scroll up to page 3, yep. The top photo, you can see those pitch pines that have been, yep, you can see on that top photo, those pitch pines that have been cut down to about 3 to 4 feet. And then they're just completely covered with bittersweet vine on kind of intermingling. Once we get down outside of the 50-foot buffer and onto the coastal bank itself, we have a native plant community that's in really good health. So we're not actually proposing any work at all on the coastal bank, just in the 50-foot buffer to restore that area.
Right. So when at the end of the day, the existing 50-foot buffer will be transformed into a vegetated buffer strip, essentially, with the exception of the small lawn area for the access to pool maintenance.
Yes, yes, that's the goal of the plan.
There's no lawn will remain in this area. So it's
correct.
The lawn is being replaced partly by a pool and the rest of it by mitigation plants.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Well, that's better. Okay, thank you. Just need to clarify that.
Thank you, Janet. I see no other hands. I guess I'll just, I don't have too many questions. I mean, we are more or less filling up the outer R with hardscape, which, some of you who've been listening in, or I've objected to similar projects in the past at some level. However, in this case, we are, as Janet pointed out, restoring essentially the entire NDZ. And so it seems like a reasonable trade-off. I can also quibble with the fact that we are not going to let any existing, and I'll quote, historically poorly pruned trees on the coastal bank from regrowing. And one could argue the fact that they should be allowed to do that, at least some of them. But I understand the owner's interest in having the view that they have historically had. So, but when you take into account the entire area being mitigated, I think it's overall a positive project. So I guess I really don't have any substantive requests for changes. You're going to talk to your clients about talking to the neighbors, about talking about ways to stop their invasives from attacking your clients' natives.
Yes.
And that'll be good. And at the very least, we'll have a mow strip. At the very most, we'll have something better than that.
Correct. That's the goal, to have something better than that, but at the least a mow strip, yes.
Yes, all right. And I think that we I haven't heard of any other requests for changes. Correct me again if I am not remembering correctly on that.
No.
All we're waiting for is what to do with that borderline area between the neighbors. And so Hearing nothing else, I think we can go ahead and make a motion, Bob, if you would like.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue 306 Hardings Beach Road to the work session for an order of conditions on January 5th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're ahead of schedule.
We're good. So 20 Jericho Lane, Mark Leibovitz, map 10B, parcel B2, construction of a pool.
David Clark Engineering. Andrew Garrelay is also on the line. He's the landscape architect, as well as Teresa Sprague, who developed the restoration plan. So, as you know, this is an ongoing project. You saw this, I think, the beginning of last year as a demolition rebuild project is well underway. The owners have decided that they really want a swimming pool. And so it was a question that was asked of them in the development stages of the single family home. And we were told that they weren't interested in a pool, but apparently the house is coming out so nice, they really think, or they really would like to add a pool at this point. So Andrew worked really, really hard to find a spot that was in the existing limit of work, so we could, for a pool. It does require some retaining walls. We were proposing some retaining walls in that area anyways, but this is an expansion over what was approved by, I think, 1,600 square feet. And to that end, Teresa has developed a new restoration mitigation plan for areas of the lot closest to the river for restoration. The resource areas are basically the buffer zone or coastal bank. I think most of the work is outside any of the other buffer zones. So we're strictly dealing with the buffer zone or the outer aura to the coastal bank. So if there's any questions on the engineered plan, I'd be happy to answer them. But Andrew and Teresa here to talk about or ask for you to ask questions of their work.
Thank you, David. Yeah, as with the last project, I think it helps just to hear from everybody for all facets of the project, then we can dive in.
Sure. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. One of the wonderful things about this particular lot is that there's no invasive vegetation to speak of. So this is really an opportunity to just improve the vegetated buffer and some small areas of the coastal bank that are currently existing lawn. We're proposing to plant out the area that we're showing in green, supports 124 shrubs, a mix of shrubs that are existing that we identified on the site, including bayberry, winterberry, holly, clethra, with some switchgrass that's also existing down at the edge of the salt marsh. And in addition to that, along the southern or southwestern property line, I guess you'd call it, we are proposing to plant in some amelanchier, some understory trees, as well as some additional bayberry in that area along that western property boundary. So, with that, we've got what's currently a mowed area that dips down into the coastal bank, almost to the edge of the salt marsh. We'll be entirely revegetating that area and then creating a vegetated buffer strip landward of the top of coastal bank within the 50-foot buffer. But the area that we're proposing to plant, so we're basically removing lawn, or actually it's Cape Cod lawn, so we'll be planting directly into that lawn, is 1,880 square feet.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Teresa. So I guess maybe it's my turn to start again. So how did you choose the boundaries of this mitigation area?
Basically, I was looking at the mitigating the increase in structure at a 2-to-1 ratio and really looking at the vegetation that's existing on the site. So you can see the area that's shown as the edge of vegetation. There's the at-grade steps that lead to the existing ramp down to the pier. That edge of area is entirely vegetated, mainly with bayberry, some clethra and some winterberry holly, and then similarly to the west. So I was looking at connecting those two areas and revegetating that lawn area in between the vegetated areas, both to the east or north and south. It's kind of a weird angle. So let's say north and south just to make it easy. So kind of connecting those two areas so that we have a continuous, unfragmented vegetated buffer to the coastal bank.
Okay, so between my memory is a little faulty here on the way the property looks. Between the proposed mitigation area and the 50-foot line, what is there? Is that Cape Cod lawn or is that?
It is. It's Cape Cod lawn with canopy trees, oaks and pitch pines. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're not too worried then, it sounds like, from invasives taking over this mitigation area because
no,
there aren't any there already.
There are not. This area is really healthy native vegetation, including the grasses that are part of the Cape Cod lawn mix. They're mainly native grasses. So Danthonia, which is the common name, just completely went out of my head. Poverty oatgrass, that
It's
thinks.
okay.
And so, yeah, so there's a bunch of native grasses already existing, and I suspect once they stop mowing, once we replant that area, we'll see native grasses and likely a lot of goldenrods coming back into this planting area once the mowing ceases.
Mm-hmm. With regard to the previous project, just this year, it was a mitigation area for it as well, I assume. No, there wasn't. No, I'm looking back at my notes. There was no mitigation because there was a decrease in coverage. Okay, so the question I was going to go for is, how this relates to any previous mitigation, but there was none. So I just answered my own question. So are we removing any trees?
No trees are going to be, well, wait a minute, I should not speak. No trees are going to be removed within the 50-foot buffer, but it looks like some trees may have to be removed for the pool. I would defer to Andrew on that.
Oh, okay. Let's hear about that since we have the topic up from Andrew.
Oh, yes. The situation is that where the swimming pool is going to go, there were trees. There are not trees there now. They were not supposed to come out, but they did come out, which was not on the plan to come out. Somehow they were, I think it's because they were inside the hay bale. Somebody misjudged and took them out. So I had a different limit of work line, I think, than the Clark plan had, maybe. I'm not sure. Can we put my plan up there or turn it loose so I can put it up there? I can't, I don't think I can point or anything onto that plan. So I'll go ahead and post mine.
Yep,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, yeah, you can see currently there's no trees in that area. However, like I said, they were in the, let's see if I have the other plan here. Yeah, there were these trees are not there. That's, I don't manage the job, so I don't know why they were taken out, but they are not there. And actually, I cleaned up this drawing, so that's why there's nothing shown on here for existing trees. But there was 2 or 3 trees right in this area. Again, I'll go back to that. You can see these trees right here are not there.
And so as far as you know, those are the only trees that were recently removed within the project area.
Yeah, I think they got removed when the construction first started. I think it was probably an accidental thing that, because you can see, if I can show you again, see my limit of work comes in front of those trees. And I believe that the original site plan might have had the limit of work line behind those. I'm not sure what happened with that. But they're just not there right now. So one of the things that was, do you want me to go ahead and explain a little bit on the plan here?
Well,
or
sure, but
okay.
I do want to come back to this little situation at some point.
Sure. So one of the big challenges with this swimming pool is that the house was designed with retaining walls in this area. I'm assuming that you can see my hand on that screen?
Yes.
Right. There were other retaining walls in this area, and that had to do with the height calculations for zoning purposes. So one of the challenges on this was I had to keep the elevation of the hardscape high here in order to have the house continue to remain compliant with height. So that is why there's a retaining wall that comes out around in this direction, and we kept the pool up high. It's kind of an intermediate. It's not at walkout level, and it's not at first floor level. You can see there's some steps. I'll try to zoom in a little bit here. You can see there's some steps coming up. There's 4 steps coming up. So we're coming up about 2.5 feet from the walkout basement level. And then we're coming down some steps here, coming down about 6 feet to get to this level. So this is retained along this edge. This actually retains the outside from coming in, and then it transitions about here where this is being retained from spilling out in this direction or this direction. And then we have steps, of course, coming from the walkout basement going down to access the pathway to the pier. So that's really what drove the retaining walls on this. We couldn't fit anything in. We couldn't fit anything in because of zoning setbacks and septic setbacks. So I should just, I'll back out a little bit here so I kind of explain that. We looked at putting the pool. They really wanted to put the pool over here, but you can see that septic system here. We have to have a 20-foot setback from that septic system. And then we have a setback, a zoning setback here. So it was just this little tiny spot right here. And then the 50-foot from the coastal bank creeps in here. So the only place we could get that was over into this area rather than that area.
Okay.
Should I stop sharing or?
No, just you can leave there for now. Okay. Is this, I can't remember, is this, is the patio pervious or not?
It is not. It has drainage all the way around the edge here being captured that will go to dry well. That's what the double line is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it also pitches back to the house and retaining wall here where it's caught in that double line, which is a channel drain.
Got it. All right. Back to those trees again. So you're thinking that the trees went out with the original project or in preparation for this, or the original project?
Yes.
And, okay. Oh, what is that? Who's got a train whistle going? All right, I'm gonna stop for a minute while I think about that, and I think that Bob had his hand up at one point. You don't right now, though, do you, Bob?
Yeah, no, I can talk, I guess, if you want.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so on the previous project, we did have some mitigation, I believe, down at the base of the hill along the coastal bank, the Winterberry, the 6 Winterberry. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
yeah, there were 6 that I proposed. They weren't required mitigation, but the homeowner wanted to do something a little bit to enhance for the Conservation Commission. So they asked me to add half a dozen down in there.
Okay, yeah, the other thing is the current steps down to the bottom of the hill, down to the coastal bank. They kind of end up right at the center of the pool. So will those be will those stairs be changed to
Yeah, they'll
initiate?
remain so that you would walk down the steps and come around the front of the retaining wall for the pool, and then catch whatever's left of that walkway. I'll show that again. Maybe I can zoom in on that too. So whatever's left here, is that the pool area is going to be roughly here. So everything out, at least outside of that 50-foot top of coastal bank setback, those will all remain. That will still be the way to get to the pier.
I can comment on that, Andrew.
Sure.
David Clark here. We will be filing shortly another notice of intent to move the dock. The owners realize that the dock is somewhat dilapidated. The previous owner didn't take very good care of it, and so it needs rebuilding. So we thought that was a good time to make some substantial improvements in the location and the configuration and the design of that dock. Right now, there's probably, I think there's 2 20-foot sections of float that sit on the bottom at low tide. So the only other place on the property where there's sufficient depth of water is towards the south side of the property. So if that permitting process is successful, we will be relocating the access, obviously, to the dock. And so all those at-grade steps going down to the dock would be removed under that application and that area restored. So so at this point, they're going to stay, and we will deal with relocating that on the next application.
Okay, I have a question for you, David, too. Where the current silt fence is, kind of on the center left of the property, there's a breach, and there's some sand on the Cape Cod lawn down below. If that could be repaired pretty quickly. It looks like drainage is coming off the edge of the house and landing right across there.
I know the area you're talking about. I did a site inspection 3 or 4 weeks ago and brought it to Eastwood's attention, and they corrected it. But I think the most recent rain might have breached it again. So I will let them know.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And I have a question for Teresa too.
Yes, I'm here.
Teresa, if you're sitting in the pool bathing, and if you look towards the water, there is some invasive vegetation there, and there's a small oak growing up. And I'm just wondering whether that area can be managed.
If we're looking at, I did not note, I was just out there recently and I didn't note any invasive vegetation, but if you're in the pool and looking sort of towards the east.
Towards the south, I believe. Yeah, towards the southeast, right.
Southeast, okay. I will certainly take a look at that. I did not, I walked this whole area down the path to the ramp and down the pier at the edge of the salt marsh. I did note some scarping at the toe of the bank. But I did not note any invasive vegetation in that area, but I will certainly go out and comb through there again. And then there's a small, like a sapling size oak, Bob?
Yeah, it's probably about maybe like 5 feet growing up.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking that in time, you know, if people are sitting in the pool wanting a view, I imagine that area is gonna be an issue down the road. So just
Okay.
wondering whether that area can be cleaned up and planted.
Sure. I can certainly go and take a closer look. Is it the area where the at-grade steps are running towards the ramp? I just want to make sure I'm looking in the right spot.
Yes, it's kind of like if you're looking at the plan, if you're looking at the pool,
yeah,
it's like, and if you're standing at the coastal bank looking at the pool, it's just to the right. It's just to the right a little bit by the pool.
Gotcha. Up along that, on that sort of,
on
okay.
that edge there, yeah, thank you.
Yep, okay, all right, yeah, I'll take a closer look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I had for now, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anyone else? I have a couple more things, but I was going to give Janet a chance, but she's not raising her hand, so I'll go ahead. Okay. I asked a while ago, Andrew, about the patio not being purpose. Is there a reason that it can't be? Typically, we like to see it.
Yeah, it's all being retained by, it's all wrapped by retaining wall. So it's all contained within, I mean, if it was pervious, it would still be going in the same place underneath the patio, inside a retaining wall.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's you're saying that's not really necessary with the drainage.
Yeah,
that you have. Okay.
that's one reason, and of course with a swimming pool, having mortar joints, or having mortar joints takes away exposed edges of the stones, which can be a hazard underfoot. So we typically like to see a mortar joint to smooth those edges.
Yeah.
So people don't cut their feet.
All right. Coming back to these trees, it would seem maybe that we need to circle back for an accounting of what was removed that was not part of the plan for the previous project. And I don't know how we should do that. And the reason I think we do it is along the lines of accounting for the removal of those with this current mitigation plan. That's one possibility.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Riley, on behalf of Eastwood Companies, the company that's doing the work there. I believe those trees were pretty small pitch pines. Although my memory is foggier than most, but I can discuss the issue with the project manager and find out what happened and how many trees were out and what size they were. And then we can propose replacement as a part of the mitigation here.
Right. That's what. Yeah. Maybe Teresa, since were you involved? You weren't involved with the previous project, so.
I wasn't, so I'm just learning about those trees now. But I will certainly discuss this with Bill and with Eastward, and we'll come up with a solution for sure.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that. I mean, to me, that would be the easiest path through all this. Janet, you are muted. You're muted, Janet.
Thank you. Thanks. On Andrew's plan, the pool is surrounded by a stone patio, a terrace, which continues on. But on David and Teresa's plans, that area to the, I guess it's the west of the pool, is indicated as being a deck.
There's a deck over that patio. In the original, I'm going to go back to the plan that was previously approved.
Okay.
Yeah, so on mine, I showed the deck and then there's a dotted line. So this is what was shown to you and approved. And the dotted line is the deck that comes over that comes through here. And then these are the stairs that go up, a landing, and then they continue to go up to the deck here. So it is both a deck on the first floor level and a patio underneath it.
Andrew's plan has a note that says see deck above or deck above. So
Yeah, patio below, it says right here.
and then out at the outer edge it says deck above.
Yeah.
Is that, I can't read that. My eyes are not good enough for that.
Yeah.
Expand that plan.
Look, what's the patio is at the ground level and the deck is a level up.
Yes, correct.
So what really counts for our purposes is the patio.
Yes,
Right.
This is the old plan that was approved that we're
Right.
looking at right now.
Right, but that's what's showing on the current landscaping plan.
Yep, right there.
Yep.
That's,
All right,
yep.
just noticing that the David's site plan and Teresa's planting plan don't seem to indicate that the existence of the patio. They're just showing the deck unless I'm not finding those lines. So.
Yeah. This is David. Yeah, so our plan, you're correct, Janet. Our plan actually shows roof extending from that bump out on the south bump out over to the northerly bump out. That is actually a roofed area that's above the first floor deck. So Andrew is showing that area as patio because that's what's proposed at ground level.
Okay.
So our plan kind of shows a bird's eye view, and Andrew's showing what's happening on the ground.
Okay. I just want to make sure that when all these three plans, we're going to approve the final plans and file them of record, that they are consistent, so that when the certificate of compliance time comes around, it's clear what's supposed to be there. Does anything need to be changed, or is it, you think it's all explain itself? I still see them as inconsistent.
Yeah, here's the retaining wall is being shown here, and then the stairs from the retaining wall, and then there's the steps up. So to me, I read it correctly. Then again, I know what's on there, so.
Yeah.
And there's an elevation right there. That's the patio elevation.
Yeah. Okay. I just pulled this out of here.
Yeah.
All right. As long as it's clear. Question for, I guess it's Andrew. If you're coming down those steps and you're at grade and you're walking down to where the Cape Cod lawn is, and you've got the retaining wall on your left, what is the height of the retaining wall in that location?
Okay. I have to look. The elevation of it is 33.3, and the bottom step meets grade at 26. So it is 7.3 feet high.
Okay. Okay. 7.3. Okay.
Yeah. And when you get to the top of the steps here, it's about 2.5 feet high.
Right. Okay. It's gonna be tall down there. All right. Do you guys, do you have to, all right, go to zoning for this change?
No.
No, we do not.
I never understand how it works with swimming pools, but okay.
Well, no, it's a question of setbacks, and a living pool is not an increase in living area, so you're not increasing the use of the structure. So that's why we don't have to go to zoning. As long as a swimming pool meets setbacks, it doesn't constitute coverage under the zoning bylaw. So the ZBA is busy enough without having to deal with all the swimming pools in town.
That's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Janet. So I was going to make a comment about how we're adding only 3 service berries, but I do recall there are lots of a fair number of tall trees further down the bank, and I would guess, Teresa, that's why there was no trees being added besides the 3 service berries, which I don't actually consider trees.
Yeah, Teresa had to leave.
She had to leave. Okay, well,
yeah, she had an appointment with her accountant, which can't be good news.
No, it never is. All right, I was going to talk to her about demarcation of this mitigation. I know that she says that there's no invasives in the area, but I wanted to have a discussion with her about whether demarcation of that would be useful. I think it might be, since it's essentially the only mitigation area on the property, but perhaps Bill, go ahead, John.
Sorry, a demarcation of
the mitigation area.
Mitigation area, okay.
Yeah, we would put that into an order here. It's coming up against lawn, so you'd want to make sure that that's carefully carved out. But they're also going to come back with an accounting for and hopefully proposal for replacement of the trees. So there may be more trees.
So
that's correct.
We need to have another audience with you all, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else though that I guess, let's see, what have we asked for? The tree problem and anything else, Janet or Bob or?
Well, Teresa said she's going to review the site again.
Yeah.
So sort of double check her determination that there are no invasives on the property.
Yes, right. Okay. So nothing to, we're not asking for any substantive changes, just a little more information.
Right.
And so, right. So I think we can, Bob, go to the next hearing, or that whatever hearing date is appropriate for you folks.
I think we're ready. Whatever you're.
The 15th.
Yeah, we'd be ready for that.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 20 Jericho Lane to December 15th, 2021.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. We'll be
thank you.
Get you the information promptly.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Bye now.
Okay. Well, I was worried about nothing.
4:05. What do you guys want to do for 25 minutes?
I have an idea. Oh, well, we did work today, I think.
Well, the work is yet to come for Nikki. We just kicked 7. That matters.
That's all right. After the 15th, we have 2 free weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic.
Yeah, but the things that we kicked are I think relatively minor to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, I see what you mean as far as writing the OOCs are concerned. Well, we'll deal with that when we get to it.
We have a lot.
I think it's Karen's and Mary's turn to try their hand at some OOCs. I think that's what I think. The first one's difficult, and even the 5th one is difficult. The 7th one is not that hard, and then it gets easy.
By the 23rd, you really get the hang of it.
You really hit your stride after that. And then you can just, crank them out. And we could even have a little session on how to OOC. if you're at all amenable to it. But and I'll also say in toward that end, it does help you greatly understand more deeply what you need to pay attention to, even during the hearing part. Whenever you are sitting there trying to craft the OCs, you learn the regulations at a much deeper level, I think. So it does help you grow in your role as a commissioner. And it is a little painful to begin with. There's no question that it's painful at the beginning, but it's
I
surprising.
actually
It
worked for
surprisingly does
Janet
get
on
easier.
a couple.
Right, Karen and I updated the template last summer.
Yes.
Yep, and I worked on a couple with her.
Yep.
All the better, all the betters. And I
So
think
she's
that
ready to
you are,
go.
you are poised. You are poised on the brink of being an OOC expert.
I would be happy to work on one with supervision.
Excellent. That's very, very good. And I think it's a great idea. So Nikki, keep that in mind. If you're at the position of handing some out, well, maybe we can handle some of them as duos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That'd be great.
do a little training up while we're doing it. And yeah, I think it's all to the good.
Yep.
Well, I can do the initial writing and Nikki can look it over.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what she always does. Yeah. Yeah, very good. We'll all be in the harness.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm glad that we cranked through those. And the next week should be, the next session will be, what's your estimation, Nikki? It's going to be full again with a number that we continued.
With what we continued, we have, I think, 2 new ones, I think is what it was.
No,
so.
that's a light load, yeah.
That's not so bad.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can coast into the holidays.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you once again. And it's dark.
Make a motion
So we
to
need to
adjourn.
have a motion.
There's an idea.
Make a
made
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. All right. Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right.
Thank you all. See you next time.